Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining today's webinar. My name is Viviana Valencia, and I'm the Executive Coordinator at CALDO. At this webinar, on how to contact a supervisor for graduate studies, our panelists will provide you with valuable information, tips on how to contact a supervisor, how to write a research statement or a statement of interest, and what makes for an outstanding graduate application. Before we start, I'd just like to go over a few housekeeping items because we're going to be having 3 guests today. They're all going to be presenting. So if during that time you have any questions, please use the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. So you're going to see 2 boxes, one that says Q&A and the other one that is the chat, where you can also say hi or use it for other purposes. But if you have any questions, please use the Q&A box. And if possible, if you have a question specifically for a particular person, for one of the guests, please note the name of the person that you would like to answer your question. Okay, so with this, I would like to maybe start by introducing you to CALDO. For those of you who are not familiar with the consortium. So CALDO is a consortium of 10 of Canada's U15 leading universities. And these universities distinguish from other Canadian universities because of their strong research focus. Our members consist of the universities that you see now on your screen, which are the University of Alberta, University of Calgary, Dalhousie University, Université Laval, McMaster University, the University of Ottawa, University of Saskatchewan, University of Toronto, University of Waterloo, and Western University. So what is CALDO? So for those of you who have not participated in one of our previous webinars, CALDO is a bridge between you, the prospective student, and our 10 member universities. So we provide an array of services. For example, we provide assistance on the steps to apply for graduate studies. Also, we help you by providing information about the different graduate programs that our member universities offer, and guidance and webinars such as the one that we're doing today on how to contact supervisors, and other information for example, funding options that you may find. Right now, CALDO, we're working in 9 countries in Latin America, and some of the agreements that we have in those countries are, for example, CAPES with CAPES and CMPK in Brazil, ANID in Chile, MinCiencias in Colombia, CENESID from Ecuador, CONACYT from Mexico, CENESID from Panama, BECAL from Paraguay, PRONAVEC from Peru, and Uruguay, ANI from Uruguay. So those are some of the countries that we're working in currently in North America, and those are the funding agencies with which we have agreements for mobility. So before we continue, I would just like to draw your attention to our website, where you may find a lot of information, a lot of resources as you're looking to become a graduate student in Canada. So some of the information that you will find there are, for example, again, steps to apply for a graduate program, more information about the funding opportunities that I mentioned, also testimonials from other students who are currently either in Canada or who have graduated from one of our member universities. Here you can also see other type of resources that we have on our website, and I mentioned this in most of the webinars because honestly for me it's one of the most useful tools that you will find on our website, and that is a search engine where you can type the program that you're interested in, the level that you're interested in, and it will display all of the programs that our 10 member universities have on that area. So now, as you might already know, if you're interested in pursuing research graduate studies in Canada, either a master's or a PhD, as part of your application, you might be required to submit the following documents, the ones that you're seeing on your screen. So for example, the transcripts, for those of you who are not familiar with this word, so transcripts is basically the document where all of your courses and grades are listed. These are the courses and grades that you took while you're completed your bachelor's degree. So that's the transcript. Also, you might be required to provide proof of language, and that this could be done through an official test, either TOEFL, IELTS, or CAE. It all depends on the program and the university that you're applying, the different options of language tests that you're able to provide. A curriculum vitae could also be part of your application, references, definitely, and a statement of research. This is very, very important because unlike many Latin American countries, most programs in Canada do not hold interviews to select the prospective students from the pool of applicants. Hence, this document could be considered as one of the most important documents from your application package. Our guest today will be able to provide with a little more information, tips on how to structure this document so you have, again, an outstanding application. So how to select a supervisor? So again, if you're thinking on pursuing graduate studies in Canada, you will be required to have a what's called a research supervisor, commonly referred to as a thesis supervisor. And as a graduate student, you should take time in selecting who this mentor should be, because you will be working with this person during the length of your program. So some of the things that we will consider you should mention is, for example, you should take it into account is, for example, the expertise. How long have this person been working in your area of research? Experience. Have they supervised many graduate students? Availability. How often will they meet with you, and how do you get in touch with them? Research and publishing. How often do they publish? How active is their research? And for me, one of the areas that a lot of prospective graduate students don't really pay attention, but I think is one of the most important ones, is the personality and interpersonal skills of the person. Because again, you're going to be working with this person. If it's a master's, 2 years. If it's a PhD, normally 4 years, potentially more, depending on how long your PhD is. And you want to be working with someone that you get along with, someone that, yes, it's going to be a relationship of mentor and mentee, but you still will be working with them. So I will say definitely try and spend some time researching who this person could be. And also another thing that I would like to mention, and this is just from my experience being a graduate student at some point in my life, is that you will find that oftentimes, normally most people would like to work with the big names, right? So just also bear in mind that big names could mean sometimes that their agendas are very, very limited in terms of time, the time that they can give you to supervise you. So again, I will say maybe have a list of the things that are important for you as a student, and then when you start your research in terms of who could be your supervisor, start like putting checks under each of the items that you consider that could be very important for you. Well, with this very brief introduction to our topic today, I would like to now introduce our guest today, and it is my pleasure to introduce the University of Calgary. From the University of Calgary, we have Calvin Lack, who is the Graduate Recruitment Coordinator of the Faculty of Graduate Studies. We also have participation from the University of Saskatchewan. Kathy Suderman is our guest today, and she's the Acting Manager for Student Recruitment. And from the University of Waterloo, we have Dr. Kirsten Mueller, and Kirsten is the Assistant Vice President of Graduate Studies and Postdoctoral Affairs. So for today, we're gonna be doing the presentations on alphabetically, basically. So Calvin, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen now so you can start perhaps sharing your screen. Give me
Sounds good. Thanks, Bibiana. Just give me 1 second here, guys.
Thank you.
Okay, sorry, let me just find the screen here.
No worries.
There we go. All right, so thank you everybody for joining us in this CALDO webinar. Again, my name is Calvin Lack and I work at the University of Calgary. I'm the Graduate Student Recruitment Coordinator and one of the Graduate Program Officers here. I'll start off with a little bit about the University of Calgary for those who might not know where we are or who we are, but CALDO has put on many different webinars on different universities. So if you're interested in any of the universities you hear today, the University of Calgary, Saskatchewan, or Waterloo, please check their YouTube page for a more in-depth look at the individual universities. So we'll quickly go over the university before we get into the supervisors and statement of intent. So the city of Calgary.
Sorry, just before you start, I just wanted to make a note. We're seeing now what's it called, like we can see your next slide. I don't know if that's what you meant to do, like instead of having the presentation mode.
Oh, okay.
Maybe that's how what you meant to do, but I just wanted for you to be aware of that. Yeah.
Yes. Can you see it here like this better, or?
Yeah, so it's now we can see the slides on the left hand side.
Okay.
And if you just see, I guess the slideshow, the presentation. Yeah.
I don't know why. You could only see it from the left hand side, huh?
Yeah, on the left hand side. Yeah, we can see the different slides. Yeah.
Sorry, I've got two screens going on here.
No worries, that happens.
But if worse comes to worse, I'll just stick with this. If you can see, can you see this? Okay, we'll go with that so that we're not wasting time. So the University of Calgary is located in the city of Calgary, which is in Alberta. We're not the capital city, Edmonton is, but we are the largest city in Alberta. We have over 1.2 million people living in our city, so which makes us one of the largest cities in Canada. We have beautiful landscape in around our city that a lot of students can take advantage of. You can see some of the mountains and lakes that you can enjoy on your off days. A little bit about the city. Calgary has been ranked the 5th most livable city in the world. So when you think of all the great places to live in the world, in America, in Canada, Calgary was ranked the 5th and #1 most livable city in the world. We are a very highly educated population and Canada's 4th most diverse city. We are also known as the energy capital of Canada. So a lot of research and a lot of work goes into the oil and gas industry here. This is where they produce oil. We have the oil sands. We do a lot of sustainable energy research as well. We have the highest concentration of corporate head offices and small business per capita in Canada. And we're also the sunniest city in Canada, over 333 days a year of sunshine. And what you see in that picture is a landscape or a shot of downtown, and in behind that are the Rocky Mountains. We're very fortunate in Calgary to be very close to Banff National Park, which is only about an hour and a half away from Calgary. So a lot of students on their holidays or on the weekend can rent canoes, boats, camping gear, hiking gear, and go to the mountain and enjoy this wonderful national park. We have a lot of festivals throughout the year, a lot of great restaurants, and it's a very lively city. A little bit about the University of Calgary. As Bibiana mentioned, we are a member of Canada's U15 Research Intensive Universities. We have over 33,000 students at the University of Calgary, 26,000 plus undergraduates and 6,000 plus graduate students. And about 30% of our graduate population are international students. Our campus is very beautiful. It's like a park. You know, when you come to Calgary and you walk around campus, you can enjoy the 4 seasons that Canada has to offer. You can see the leaves changing colors in the fall, the flowers coming up in the spring, the wintertime you see snow, and all the buildings in around campus are connected by underground tunnels. So in the wintertime, when it is a bit colder outside, you can get to your classrooms, to your labs, all in the comfort of underground tunnels. 91% of our graduate students find employment within 6 months after their graduation, and we also offer a wide range of programs and offices to support students. So, graduate supervisors. What is a graduate supervisor? Bibiana kind of mentioned it a lot, mentioned it in her presentation, but again, a supervisor is a faculty member who oversees your research and the development of your thesis. When do you need to have one? Some programs require students to obtain a supervisor prior to an application, whereas other programs will assign a supervisor upon your admission. The student-supervisor relationship, your supervisor's research interests should be similar to your own, and they should be prepared to provide mentorship through throughout your time in grad school. The challenge now is, how do you identify a supervisor? That's a question that a lot of prospective students have. And we try now at the University of Calgary to make it easier for students to identify supervisors who are accepting students. So if you visit a program page, for example, this is what you'll see. This is taken from the Chemical and Petroleum Engineering. You'll see a program overview, which tells you a little bit about what the program is. It tells you some what it is, what is needed to complete the program, specializations that you can pursue, how many courses you need to complete your program, and most importantly, I've highlighted is supervisor. And for this program, it indicates a supervisor is required and must agree to supervise the student's research before admission is granted. So now, how do you find a supervisor? So if you scroll down a little bit to the page, we actually now list professors in the Chemical and Petroleum Engineering program who are seeking students. So this makes it easier for students now to visit the program page to quickly look and identify professors who are accepting inquiries, who are unavailable, for example. And if you click on one of the professors, you'll see his or her research and also a contact form. I wonder if I can show you quickly here what that might look like. Give me 1 second. So when you go onto our website and you go to Future Students, Explore Programs, you'll see a list of all our graduate programs. For example, if you are into biomedical engineering, a thesis base, you can click that. Again, it's similar to the slideshow. It'll tell you a little bit about the program. It'll tell you some things about the course, how many courses are required. And this program, it says a supervisor is required and must agree to oversee the student's research and fund the student before they will be granted admission. So if you scroll down a little bit, this is where we list our supervisors. And you can see a picture of the supervisor, the professor. You can see what they're working on. For example, Dr. Bray, you click on her, she's accepting inquiries. These are things that she's accepting inquiries for: medical science, biomedical engineering, and then there's a contact form. So this is how we've, at the University of Calgary, made it a little bit easier for students to start looking for supervisors, to start identifying supervisors who might be looking for students. A lot of times, the supervisors are the ones providing you funding as well. So when you are looking for a supervisor, you have to do your research. Start by viewing the profiles online and reading a couple of their publications to familiarize yourself with their work. So when you look at the program page, jot down 2 or 3 professors you'd like to work with and start researching about them. You know, be specific in your correspondence with the professors. You can write a brief email to them indicating your awareness of their research and how it fits with your interests. If possible, refer to their publications. In the same email, let them know your intention to apply to the graduate program and express your interest in working with them. You know, show them that you're serious and well qualified. Tell them a couple of strong points about your background, maybe who you've worked with on research projects, and wait before following up. I know sometimes when you email a professor, you would like to have a response in a couple of days, but professors are very busy. Sometimes you might not get a response back in a week, maybe 2 weeks. You know, send them a follow-up email and remind them of your interest in having them supervise your research. And make the ask, you know, if it's okay to refer them to you as a prospective supervisor in your application. And statement of interest and intent. Some programs may require you to include a statement of interest or intent in your graduate school application. When you're contacting your supervisor, they may ask you for one as well. So a statement of interest is a crucial part of most graduate school applications. They go by the term statement of intent as well. It's just a description of your research interests or something similar. It's basically an opportunity to tell the graduate program your specific area of academic interest, the research topic you want to work on, how your past education and other experiences have prepared you for you to be successful in the graduate program. You know, what do you hope to achieve? Oops. And the statement is generally in the form of a short essay. You know, please contact the program you are applying to if you have any questions on the content of your statement of interest. Here are some tips for a strong statement of interest. State any work you have done, contact your area of interest, refer to academic publications, and mention any publications, presentations, or conferences you have been a part of. So you're building a case for yourself. You want to show that you're focused, skilled, and enthusiastic, and a great match for the professor and the program as well. When you're applying to the University of Calgary, there are some supporting documents that you might need to prepare and have ready to upload to your application. The CV depends on the program, your transcripts that Bibiana mentioned earlier, proof of English language scores or GRE scores if required, the statement of interest, the names and email addresses of your references, and some programs might have additional requirements. For example, if you're applying to architecture, they might ask for a portfolio, for example, of your work. The application review process are done by each individual program. They have their own evaluation committee, and successful applicants are sent admission offers by the program themselves. So if you apply to a program and you have any questions about the status of your application, please contact the program that you have applied to. Some quick tips on submitting a successful application: read the eligibility and requirements of the program before applying, choose the right references, ask professors for an excellent recommendation letter and let them know that you're applying to the University of Calgary, have a strong statement of interest that is well thought out, and highlight your academic and professional achievements, and have all your supporting documents ready to upload. Again, you know, we would love to see you at the University of Calgary. This is some highlights of our university. Most applications for the fall 2021 term will open in October and in November. Each graduate program has their own admission deadline. So it's best to view the program that you are interested in to see what their application deadline is and what documents you need to have for your application, and if a supervisor is needed prior to applying to the program. If you have any questions, you can email me at future.grad@ucalgary.ca, and I'll be sticking around answering any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much, Calvin. Yeah, so I would just like, before we continue with Kathy, I would just like to remember our audience that we're recording this webinar and we're gonna be sending to you via email, just in case you would like to go back to some of the information that is being presented. You'll have your time to view it again on your own. And also, so if you want to start asking questions, please use the Q&A boxes, and I invite our panelists to answer those questions if you would like to, while the other people are presenting. Yeah, so thank you very much, Calvin, again, and Kathy from the University of Saskatchewan. Thank you, Kathy.
Good afternoon, everyone. Okay, I'm going to share my screen for you. Okay. So, my name is Kathy Suderman, and as Bibiana already mentioned, I'm the acting manager for student recruitment here at the university. And our university is named after the province of Saskatchewan because we were the first university to be established in the province of Saskatchewan in the year 1907. And here you can see a little bit of a picture we often like to joke that the province itself of Saskatchewan is very easy to draw. You see the shape, but the word is maybe not as easy to spell or to pronounce. And we're located in the city of Saskatoon, which is located approximately here, central Saskatchewan. And similar to what Calvin said about Calgary, Saskatoon is not the capital of the province of Saskatchewan, but it is the largest city in the province of Saskatchewan. And I'm not going to say too much more about our city here, but I'm going to show you some places where you can learn more about our city a little bit later on. So the University of Saskatchewan has roughly, in terms of our graduate study program, the College of Graduate and Postdoctoral Studies, we have 118 research chairs and distinguished professors, 55 research centers, and more than 80 different fields of graduate study. And we are guided by our university plan, which is the university that the world needs, working together across disciplines and with our communities to find creative solutions to the most pressing global challenges. And here you can see that we are ranked by the ARW rankings last year, top 4 in Canada in these areas, and the top in Canada in the area of water resources. We are, as Bibiana already mentioned, a member of CALDO, which you've already been introduced to. And 2 days ago, 2 members of our team presented a Study in Canada webinar through CALDO about the University of Saskatchewan. And I'm not sure if it's available on CALDO's YouTube channel yet today. I checked last night, but if you missed seeing that, I'm sure it's going to be available there very soon.
Yes, next Monday.
Great. We are also, in addition to be a member of CALDO, we are a member of the U15 group of top Canadian research universities. And this is out of 97 universities across Canada. We are in the top 15 for research, and so we're very proud of that. And study and discovery at the University of Saskatchewan is enhanced by outstanding facilities, including research facilities such as the Canadian Light Source Synchrotron. That's the only synchrotron located in Canada. Also VITO Intervac, which I'm going to mention more about. The Global Institute for Food Security, the Global Institute for Water Security, and also the Sylvia Fedorak Canadian Centre for Nuclear Innovation. So we have a well-deserved reputation for creativity, collaboration, and achievement that is supported by these very strong research facilities. We have 6 key signature areas of research in which these 80 different programs are located. And we explore diverse areas, including cancer treatment, crop development, animal and human vaccines, business, education, First Nations issues, natural resource development, and more. And I mentioned before our VITO Intervac research facility. Of course, we are all currently dealing, the entire world is currently dealing with a new pandemic at present. And our VITO Intervac is developing prototype vaccines for this coronavirus. And this has become the #1 priority for research at the Vaccine and Infectious Disease Organization, which we call VITO Intervac at the University of Saskatchewan. And we have a research team, including researchers from the University of Saskatchewan, as well as collaborating scientists from across the country and even around the world that have been awarded, well, the current project at our VITO Intervac is a $1 million project that is part of a $26 million project looking at our Canadian government federal rapid research funding aimed to contribute to global efforts to contain the outbreak. So, what do you need to know about contacting a supervisor? You need to do your research before you start. What program is it that you want to study? And you should keep in mind that your field of study might have a different name from institution to institution. So maybe what you know it as is called something different at our university. So what program do you want to study? And then look to see, does the university that you're applying to have your desired program? Then you need to be making sure you are well acquainted with the admission requirements. And it's important to know that in most universities, there can be different admission requirements from program to program. Some programs would require just things like your transcripts, your CV, references, but others might require additional documentation such as a GRE. So you need to check what's required for your program of interest. Then you need to be checking, does the program that you're interested in require you to find a supervisor before applying? In the case of the University of Saskatchewan, some of our programs require you to first find a supervisor before you go ahead and apply. In other cases, you do a pre-qualification form after which you're invited to apply. And in other cases, you just go ahead and apply and the department will match you with a supervisor. So it does depend program to program. Finally, what is your specific area of research that you are interested in? Also important to be thinking ahead of time. And then finally, you need to be identifying faculty that are doing research in your particular area of interest. And so I'm going to be saying a little bit more about those things. Here, this gives you just a quick view of what our future graduate program page looks like. You can go onto this page and click on Find a Program, and from there you'll be taken to a long list. You see just a few programs listed here, but of the 80 different areas of research, you would then go and click on your area of, or your program of interest to learn more. And I mentioned that there could be some varying admission requirements from program to program. Our basic admission requirements across all of our graduate programs would be an admission average of at least 70%, depending if you're coming from an undergrad or a master's into a master's or a PhD, it would still be the same, 70%. And that was the basic, the minimum level. You also need to show that you have demonstrated ability for independent thought, advanced study, and research. And here's a little bit of a difference between the master's and the doctoral programs. So, preparing for how you would contact a research supervisor. Important to note that, of course, you and your supervisor will be working closely together. In the case of a PhD, at least up to 4 years. So please invest time at the very beginning of your relationship and make that a very good first impression. So you would want to check the web pages of 1 or 2 or maybe even 3 professors with similar research interest to yours. Check out online publications of these professors and read them well. Become very well acquainted with them. Inform yourself about the specifics of the program that you want to apply. And here's just a bit of a snapshot of what you would see when you visit one of our program pages. There's different sections. One would include the application date or application deadlines. And again, those are also different from program to program. Then you would also have a list of research supervisors provided to you. And you would be able to click on the name of a research supervisor. And in this case, for example, if you would click on Kirsten Brett's name, you would be taken to another page that would then give you both her email address as well as her own personal website. And then you could click on that to learn more about that professor and her publications. If you cannot find a supervisor that you feel drawn to from that particular program page, we have one more tool available for prospective students. And it's a page here, which you can find from our future graduate students page. It's simply called Find a Supervisor. And this allows you to do a supervisor search. You would then type in the name of the type of research that you want to do and click the search button, and you would be given information as to which faculty in a university are doing work in those particular areas, as well as the programs that might be a good match for you. So, writing to a potential supervisor. Keep in mind that the more specific you can be in your first email, the better success you will have in getting a response from the supervisor. Also important to note that professors get dozens of emails from potential students every day. So if you want to get your email noticed, give the professor the information they need quickly, clearly, and professionally. Please use a proper title for the professor. So Dr. Smith or Professor Smith. Keep your email to the professor short. Suggestion of no more than 250 words or 3 paragraphs. Make sure to use complete sentences. And of course, use a spell check. Make it as professional as possible. And we do make a recommendation that you also copy the graduate administrator that is listed on the program page. So that way, when you're writing to a potential supervisor, the graduate administrator is also keeping track. And for example, if they know that the supervisor is, sick or something unfortunate, they may be able to respond to your email on behalf of that supervisor. Here's a very brief example. Dr. Smith, my name is so-and-so. I'm currently studying at the name of your your university. I'm in my final year of a master's in plant science with a focus on, so you're going into the detail here. Your very first paragraph is giving them your basic details, who you are, where you're studying, and what your area of research is, something about your academics, and if necessary, also your English proficiency. Your next paragraph would talk a little bit more about why you're interested in this particular supervisor. And then also saying that you have perhaps making a note of a paper that you've co-authored or written, or if it's even in review, any of those things could be listed here. So any papers, journal articles that are published, accepted, or submitted. Or it could be conference papers that you've given or scholarships that you've received. And then finally, at the end, you want to be saying exactly what the program is that you're interested in and when you want to be starting. So there's a very brief example of your first email to a potential supervisor. What if the professor doesn't respond to you? So keep in mind, Canadian universities may follow different national holidays than yours, and it's unlikely that a professor would respond to you during the holidays. There might be additional holidays held by the university. Professors are often away during the spring and summer and may not be responding to as many emails during that time. Suggestion: you would allow at least 7 working days for a professor to answer your email. Then if you have not received a response, you might consider sending a reminder, confirming that the professor received your email. And when you do that, make sure to include your original communication to the supervisor as well. And you might also mention here if you have a scholarship deadline. So if you're planning to apply for a scholarship from your country and you have deadlines to meet, it's important to note that as well. It is still possible the professor would not accept you. So we do have, in most cases in Canada, every 7 years, professors taking a sabbatical leave to concentrate on various things, or they might be at capacity already, or perhaps not have research funds available right at that time. Other options for you might then be consider another professor, or ask this first choice to potentially be a co-supervisor with another supervisor at the university. You may also consider delaying your admission. Or you may also contact the graduate chair, again, that's listed on each of our program pages, to see if there are other professors accepting students that are in your, professors that are in your area of interest. And again, make sure to copy the graduate administrator on that program page. At the bottom of each of our program pages, we will have, so for example, for the Department of Plant Sciences, we will always have the graduate chair and the graduate programs administrator listed there. So these are the people that you could be copying on those emails. So how to find us at the University of Saskatchewan? You can visit our graduate studies website, grad.usask.ca, or you could go to the CALDO website and type in the University of Saskatchewan and find links to us there. And I know that we do have other materials that we have shared with CALDO. For example, an animated version of how to contact a research supervisor, that we're just discussing, is soon going to be posted to CALDO's social media site. Okay.
Well, thank you very much, Kathy, for this valuable information. And I just like to remind our audience that if you were not able to write down the sample email that Kathy shared, do not worry. We're going to share this session with you via email in the next couple of days, so you have it and you can review it at your leisure. Before I continue, I would just like to note that I see some questions in the Q&A box. I would like to invite our panelists, if you see a question that you would like to answer live after all the presentations have been completed, please note it there. Or if you want to answer them in writing, feel free to do so at any point. Now, Kirsten Miller, Assistant Vice President for the Graduate Studies and Postdoctoral Affairs at the University of Waterloo. Thank you, Kirsten.
Hi, thank you. I'm just going to share my screen here. Okay. Okay, I'm hoping everyone can see that. So thank you very much. And I want to thank everyone that's gone before me at my other colleague institutions in Canada, because you've covered a lot of the things that I wanted to talk about. So I will kind of just mention a little bit about myself. I am a professor, I'm a scientist. I've supervised over 30 graduate students in my career so far. So I might have a little bit of a different perspective on some of the questions and some of the things that have come up. I'm also the Assistant Vice President in our Graduate Studies office at the University of Waterloo. So where is Waterloo? Waterloo is in southern Ontario, so quite a little bit of a drive from Alberta and Saskatchewan. We're actually closer to the US border here. We're about an hour and 45 minutes, and we're about an hour and a half west of Toronto. So we're kind of in this real southern part of Canada. Waterloo is a city of a population of about 110,000 and is close to another city called Kitchener, which has about another 200,000 in its population. We are well known for our Nobel Prize winner in physics, Donna Strickland, who is only the third woman to have received the Nobel Prize in physics. And she's actually a wonderful individual. And if you come to the University of Waterloo, you might have a chance to see her speak. We have a number of programs at our university that are globally recognized, and in our Canadian magazine, Maclean's, we are recognized for being #1 for the most innovative university in Canada for the past 27 years. We have over 180 master's and doctoral programs across 6 of our faculties. We also have 3 satellite campuses, which include a School of Architecture, which is in the city of Cambridge, which is about half an hour away from the university of the main campus. We have the School of Pharmacy, which is in the Faculty of Sciences located in Kitchener, which is now just a quick ride on our light rail that goes from the university right through Kitchener. And then we also have a digital media technology campus, which is in Stratford, which is about half an hour west of us. We have also a number of affiliated colleges and institutions at the University of Waterloo, which are within walking distance of main campus. So when you're applying to the University of Waterloo, we have a webpage that is set up for you that outlines each of the steps. You can go to this link and you can go to the university and you can easily find this. And it has a number of different steps for you. There's also a webinar that you can watch that talks about the admission process and also touches on things like finding a supervisor as well. When you go into the before you apply, one of the things we recommend, and this is where you can see watch our webinar, we recommend that you choose your program, you understand the admission and the English language proficiency requirements, and you can also learn more about your program. You'll need to go into your program to find out if you need to find a supervisor in advance. It really varies across our campus. In my department, for example, the Department of Biology, we expect our students to have identified and obtained a supervisor before they even apply to their program. Other programs may have you apply and then a committee determines which supervisor you will go to. And then others will ask you to connect with a supervisor but not have a definitive answer from that supervisor in advance. And so at the University of Waterloo, we're known to be quite decentralized, and the faculties and departments really manage a lot of their expectations around admissions and applications. And so because I'm a researcher and because I recruit a lot of graduate students, I wanted to give you a little bit idea of where you actually fit in as a graduate student. Now, part of being a graduate student is actually having that experience to do research under the supervision of a professor. And that professor will work with you on publications. At the University of Waterloo, we're known for a lot of patents that we do. You may also be working on reports. And all of that information feeds into research grants and funding. And so we have this kind of circular relationship, and graduate students, I have to say, are so important for the research enterprise to be occurring at any kind of research campus that's research intensive like the University of Waterloo. So what do you want to study? Well, these are my boots. These are my boots in actually southern Alberta, where I actually do a lot of my field research. And one of the things that I realized when I was an undergraduate degree is that it was really important for me to be outside and to be enjoying being out in the field and doing work out in the field. So before you even start thinking about looking for a supervisor and looking at universities, you really want to ask yourself what you're interested in. Doing a master's is a 2-year commitment at least. Doing a PhD is a 4, sometimes maybe even 6-year commitment. And that's a long time to be working on something that you may not be really interested in. So think about what you want to do, think about what interests you, think about what piqued your interest during your undergraduate career, because it's a big commitment to move from your home country and come all the way to Canada. Think about what your future career goals are. Are you interested in going into industry, academia, or nonprofit? And then read up on those topics that interest you, because reading as much as you can around those topics will also help you identify potential supervisors that you might be interested in. In addition, you might find that at your institution, there are people working in those research areas, and they may know people at the Canadian universities that Caldo is representing as well. And that's another possible route to find a supervisor. So when we're looking at the University of Waterloo, if you're looking for a research-based master's program, you're generally not looking for the program itself. You're actually looking to work with a supervisor or professor who does research in your area of interest. And a lot of my colleagues have already talked about going to the university web pages, reading up on the professor's research, and really getting a good idea of what that researcher is working on, what questions they're addressing. And you may also be able to discover what their students are studying. Often web pages at our university have lists of graduate students, and you can see the projects that you're working on. And you can also go into Google Scholar and take a look at what that professor is publishing. But another really important question to ask as well is, are there graduate students publishing? Are there graduate students getting their work out there within the literature as well? So finding a supervisor, research papers, books, web profiles at the institution, Science Daily newspaper articles, all sorts of things like that are good ways to kind of identify people that you might be interested in. And that's something that can broadly apply to all our institutions. So this is, Bibiana shared pretty much the same slide. This is on our university webpage. So there are things to keep in mind that I've already kind of touched on. Are they working in your research area? Do they have experience? Have they supervised many graduate students before? Are you looking at a potential supervisor who's early on in their career, or are you looking at someone who's later in their career? Those are things to keep in mind as well. Do they have availability? Are they accepting new students? And what happens with those other students? So if you manage to connect with a potential researcher and they're interested in taking you on as a graduate student, before you jump and say yes, I recommend talking to their other graduate students and find out, is that city a good fit for you? Is the university a good fit for you? Is that researcher a good fit for you? There's lots of questions that you can ask. It's a pretty big commitment for you to come all the way to Canada. Asking questions about how often do they publish? And again, personality and interpersonal skills. Do you have a connection with that researcher? So after you send that initial email and they express some interest, I recommend having a Zoom call and just having an opportunity to chat with that individual as well. And that'll give you an idea if that research area is interesting to you as well. So for some of, and I have here about the professional programs, research supervisors are not required for those, but, and I think I already mentioned this, Waterloo's research-based master's and doctoral programs, you'll have to go in and look at those individual programs for, and there's also program coordinators that you can speak with as well. So when you've identified a potential supervisor, and I've seen a lot of questions that have already come up about what happens when a supervisor or a potential researcher doesn't respond. And I'll get to that in a second. And I think we had a really nice example in the previous slide presentation about what a letter can kind of look like. And I can agree that as a researcher, what I want to really see in that first sentence is someone that's interested in my research. So I'm a marine biologist and I study seaweeds. And if someone writes me an email and says, I do cancer research and I'm interested in doing more work on cancer, immediately that's a delete for me. I get, as was noted before, I get between sometimes 12 to 15, and in some times of the year when we're getting close to admission deadlines, upwards of 20 emails a day from prospective students. And so I really recommend making that first sentence really about what you're interested in about their research. If someone writes me and says, I'm really fascinated with seaweeds and I read your paper on such and such, that immediately is going to catch my interest and I'm going to start reading more. And then if you've included attachments, that's information that I might open up then, and then I might reach out to that student and say, okay, I am really interested because I can see that you're really interested in my work. And that's really going to require you to go in and read their research papers. Reading their profile is one thing, but going into Google Scholar and reading some of their papers and seeing what kind of work that they do is going to impact two things. One, it's going to tell you if you're interested in that area. And two, you're going to gain that information that's going to be really useful for your email to that professor and also in your research statement. All that work you do ahead of time can be included in that research statement as well. So as was noted, you know, professors are really busy. And some may not answer you, some might and say they're not interested. If you don't get an answer, I recommend not taking it personally. That person may be overwhelmed with emails. We all have things that are happening right now. We have lots of professors that are home with kids and are not looking forward to doing homeschooling in the fall. And it just may be that their lab is full or their research operation is full. It may be that they don't have the funding. And also one thing to keep in mind is that certain email addresses can often be filtered by university servers. I know at the University of Waterloo, Hotmail is something that gets filtered quite often, and it might not even actually make it to that supervisor's inbox, potential supervisor's inbox. I do recommend following up in about a week. Again, make sure that the email that you're sending really matches the research area that they're working in. That really needs to grab their attention right away. Mentioning that you're applying for potential scholarships is another one. But for a lot of researchers as well, that funding might be something that they talk about a little later on. What they want to know is that you're interested and you're enthusiastic about doing the kind of work that they're doing in their lab or their research area. I say lab because I'm a scientist and that's what I have. One thing to also keep in mind is that you might also be looking at applying kind of outside your study area if you did a master's. So if you're interested in maybe you have a background in biology and you've done water research, you might be interested in doing civil and environmental engineering where you're looking at water treatment systems. These are things you can talk about with a potential supervisor. They may be looking for skills that you might have. Another good example is if you have a background in math, but or a background in biology and you're really good at math, applied math is another program that you could go into. And those are really discussions that you can bring up with potential supervisors. It might mean you might have to do additional courses to build up your field of study, but there is often interest in having individuals in research scenarios that have different kinds of backgrounds. And those are questions that you can really bring up. So if you've done a master's in, say, science, but you're a little bit more interested in engineering, don't let that stop you from reaching out to potential supervisors. So reference letters are important, but I want to note one thing. As I mentioned at the University of Waterloo, some departments and some programs will require you to have a supervisor in advance, and that may mean that you won't need to have those letters of reference right away, but those letters of reference are going to be critical when it comes to your final acceptance. The University of Waterloo, depending on the program, you might have to have 3 academic references, or you might have to have 2 academic references and 1 professional reference. It really depends on the program, and that's where you actually need to get in and look at the program requirements for those. But reference letters are important. If you're going to ask someone that you've done a course with, I would hope that you would have a little bit more information that potential reference could give you, such as this person is an excellent writer in English. If you did a course where the primary instruction was English, or even if it wasn't English and you're an excellent writer, those are things that really are important to get communicated across in a reference letter. And as was noted earlier, ask those potential referees if they can give you an excellent reference. And that way you know right away whether or not that reference letter is going to help you through that admission process. So again, just wanted to direct you to our University of Waterloo page. I can put up the link for this after I'm done this presentation here, and you can take a look. And lastly, you are welcome to email me and ask me more questions. I will answer you back. And we also have our university webpage here, which you're welcome to take a look at. And I'll be happy to answer any questions at the end, and I'll do my best to keep popping into the chat. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Kirsten. So it seems that Cole had to go to another meeting. So well, thank you very much, Cole, for participating. Kirsten and Kathy, so what I would like to do is I will ask a question to one of you, given that the topics are very similar. If the other one has something else to add, please feel free to add to the answer. And yeah, so Kathy, is there any advantage for students applying early And normally, like, what are the processing times? Something that I noticed that is different from Latin American countries is that in Canada, many programs have two intakes, one in September and one in January. So if a student is applying to either of those, how long do you normally will think that the student is a reasonable amount of time for the university to get back in terms of the answer for the application? And also, yeah, if there are any advantages on applying early.
Do you want me to take that one first?
Yes.
Okay. So it really does depend on the program. Some of our programs have only one intake a year. And so they have a very specific, in those cases, they have a very specific deadline by which time the student should have applied. In other cases, they might have 2 or even 3 intakes over the year. And each of our program pages will still indicate a deadline by which students should apply. I would recommend, as soon as the student knows their area of interest and the potential research supervisor that they are interested in, and as soon as they have gathered all of their documents, the earlier you apply, the better. Sometimes if you're talking about doing a really good match between you and a potential supervisor, there may be some back and forth, which is to your advantage as well as to the research supervisors if you can ask questions back and forth. So that sometimes can take a little while. It's a little bit like dating in that sense, where you're trying to find the right match for a faculty supervisor. So the earlier you apply, or pardon me, the earlier you start that conversation, the better. And then once you have that conversation underway, and if the potential faculty supervisor invites you to apply, then you can still, of course, be dating or courting or entertaining conversation with the faculty supervisor at another institution. So you might even have more than one conversation going on at a time. And the earlier you start that, the more time you have to complete that part of the process. The actual application process goes relatively quickly. More effort, however, needs to be going into that conversation with the potential supervisor.
Thank you very much, Kathy. Kirsten, so I'm going to just read the actual question here, and I marked it for me to answer, but it's actually to ask it to you, not for me to answer. But do you have any advice for undergrad students who did not graduate with a thesis and who do not have potentially experience in research? Do you have any advice for them to better prepare for grad studies?
So for master's programs, research-based master's programs, we recognize that not everyone has experience with research, but volunteering with organizations that maybe are close to the research area that you're interested in can be beneficial. But a lot of supervisors recognize that students have just not had that opportunity to get that kind of experience. What I would recommend in the email that you send, or in the research statement that you write, that you talk about courses that you did as an undergraduate and what was interesting about those courses and what you enjoyed. If you're applying for a science-based or an engineering-based type research program, you could talk about the laboratory exercises you did and things that you learned. There's a lot of experiences that you had as an undergraduate that are actually kind of research-based that maybe you're not really thinking about. Even if you were doing something in the arts and you wrote a major paper on a specific topic, that's something you can write about again, and you can use those experiences even if you haven't had an undergraduate thesis, or you haven't done volunteer work, or you haven't worked in that type of field. So I would just spend some time and reflect back on your undergraduate and think about what you did that actually gave you some experience in your undergraduate degree.
Thank you very much, Kirsten. I'm just looking at the time, and I would just like to ask Kathy and Kirsten if there are any additional comments that you would like to add before we close the session, because I know maybe you have another engagements, but yeah, do you have anything else you would like to add, Kirsten and Kathy? Any advice? More than that you already gave?
Not right now. I'm just trying to answer a couple more of the questions that are here. So
Great. Thank you.
Here, I'm typing away here. No, at any time, please feel free to contact us at the University of Saskatchewan and think through Caldo. You'll find our contact information. We'd be happy to answer your questions.